Your media, where you are. Mawethu will show you the chemistry of life through food that goes from the ground to the body.
Welcome to Plant Power with Mawethu. This is your media. It's where you are, hashtag where you are on social media. It's hashtag where you are on Facebook. That's our tagline, your media SA. Our guest today is Sikelela Sovasi, a gentleman who's been doing exceptionally well in the social media space in terms of exposing us to his work. Quite intriguing. He's gone, he's literally pulling the bull by its horn, and he's bringing the education to us. Not shying away from it, and quite impressive. I love his work. So Sikelela Sovasi uses an alkaline-based lifestyle, diet, and the whole mix to actually, as an alternative to actually reverse lifestyle ailments. Welcome, Hlegazi. How are you doing?
Thanks, Buti. I'm doing good, and thanks for the invite to the show. And I want to congratulate you as well for starting this platform. Because this information needs to be shared out there with the masses. So you've done
Yes,
really
definitely.
good. Thanks, brother.
No, great stuff. Okay, cool. All right, we good to go. So tell us, who is Sikelela Sovasi? Where you from? How did this transition come about, and your own personal experience, and how you find yourself where you are today?
Okay, I grew up in East London. I'm actually a village boy. I grew up in East London, and in terms of diet, it's a place where there's no restrictions. In fact, for me, I never had any allergies. I grew up basically eating everything. So I never knew that what you eat has got an effect on your body, on your health, and even on spiritual level. So I grew up actually basically consuming everything there is. And then until about 2006, I got inspired actually through some Rastafarian movement, which actually encourages a vegetarian diet. So it was from that inspiration that I started to question, what I eat. It was from that time, around 2006, what I eat, and then the main focus was actually on avoiding flesh, because they were promoting the thing of taking care of your body, or as they call it, taking care of your temple, because that's where your soul dwells. So they were kind of theories they were sharing at that time, that you should not put dead flesh in your body. You should not make your body like a tomb. It's not a tomb. So you should basically feed your body with food that is alive, not dead food. So all those actually inspired me to start looking at what I consume. More for, I didn't have any health condition at that time to address, but it was just out of inspiration that I need to take care of my body, to maintain. Sometimes you don't have to wait until you are sick.
Yes,
Sometimes you
yes,
can
yes, yes.
maintain. Yeah. So it was from that point of view, and also the spiritual benefits around it. You know,
Yeah.
as I mentioned, growing up in the village, for the Xhosa traditions, there's something they call imfukamo,
Yes, yes.
and this is actually a process where you need to, or the whole family, or sometimes an individual, they need to connect with the ancestors. For I don't know not much on that topics, but basically,
Yes,
when
yes,
you have
yes.
to do that kind of ritual for a week before you do that, an ancestor are supposed to communicate with you via dreams, and for a week before you go through that process, you have to stop eating meat or anything with fat. That is now a way to to increase your vibration, or your levels of spirituality, so that
Hmm.
the ancestors can visit you in your dreams. I think even in Christian religion, they do this. I think symbolized by Christ with fasting 40 days and 40 nights. to
Yes.
be able to fight the devil's temptation, on a spiritual level, even on Muslims with the Ramadan. So there's spiritual and also health benefits with it. So I started to study a bit more, and at that time, like I say, it was a focus of avoiding meat. So from
Yes.
that time, for the next 6 years, that's how I've been a vegetarian. And obviously now coming from a community that praises meat, as a man you must eat meat to be strong. So obviously I faced a lot of ridicule even at home. Now you come back from school, you don't eat meat, what's wrong with you, and all those. What I was doing it for myself for the long run. So that's how I started doing it, and then obviously it started to get refined now as I learn more about even other plants that are actually not so good for the body, because I thought
Yes.
plant-based, all that is plant is good, but later on I found that it is not so. So in brief, that's how I started in this journey.
No. Perfect stuff. Perfect stuff. So I like the fact that you say you when you were in the journey, when you were like in full motion in the journey, all right, on the journey rather, you realize that not everything that is plant based has got great benefit for the body. I
Yes.
think we I think it's also as a scholar of some healers who use this, you know, I recall. I mean, I know, for instance, you do a lot of work. You refine and further research on the work that was done by Alfredo Bowman, Dr. Sebi. I'd actually like for you to give us a bit of to maybe not summarize it, but to unpack on it. I know he's been a great influence the work that you do. Uh, I'd actually like you to unpack on that because remember, someone who's transitioning into this journey, some of them want to do it because they do not want to eat animals. Some of them have actually have conditions, where they need to get their healing, which is our topic basically today. Can you quickly just unpack on your experience with Dr. Sebi's work, Alfredo Bowman, and I think that will actually pave a way into uh, the next uh, subject that we'll be talking about in this whole thing, which is the healing part.
Okay. As I mentioned, as I transition to the vegetarian, I would be consuming anything basically that is plant-based, because I believed, it was a belief that all the plants are good, only to find out later on that it is not the case, because plants are like us, animals,
Yes,
for
yes, yes.
in order for a new plant or for a new plant to be produced, the plants have to mate, but plants don't mate like physically, like we have to mate through
Mm-hmm.
sex, they have to pollinate, the process of pollination, either through wind, I'll call it a seed, or a pollen from one plant has to be flown by wind, or other by transported by bees to the other plant, to fertilize it, and then that would bring forth a new species, and nature has arranged this strictly and specifically that plants must only pollinate their kind. Like a marula plant cannot pollinate an apple plant. It just doesn't work like
Yes,
that.
yes, 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 yes.
There's a specific way. However, we found out later on that, as in fact, this is an old practice, that some scientists, or what you specifically call the botanists, started to mingle with this process now of nature. They started to want to be clever and create new plants that didn't exist. By doing this, by taking the seed now, I mean not the seed, the actual seed inside the fruit, but I mean the seed as the life-giving force, like the pollen in this case. They
Yes, yes,
take
yes, yes, yes.
the they take two plants that would not naturally mate together and combine them, and they have to do this in the lab now, and they have to facilitate this using chemicals to create a new plant, and this plant now will always retain in its DNA this inorganic chemicals that is used to facilitate this process. In this process, this chemical is normally starch. Starch is like an inclusive word. Can be starch, can be this other chemical or this other chemical, but all of them are starch, are
Yeah.
inorganic. So
Yes.
I found out now all those plants that are created by man, are man-made basically. No God or nature didn't create them. They don't do much justice to us. They don't do much justice to us. That's why you can still find out someone says a vegetarian eat all the plants, but they can still get sick with the same things that people that are eating meat are suffering from. So it's because those plants, those chemicals are still damaging our systems. So it was from that view then that I got refined from my vegetarian journey to now
Yes. Yes. Yes.
check
Yes. Yes.
specifically for those plants that are created by nature, because only those plants could nourish our bodies, because there's something they call, they understand each other, they are compatible, or what they
There's
call
affinity.
chemical
Yeah.
affinity.
Yes.
Chemical
Yes. Chemical
affinity, yes.
affinity. Yeah.
They basically they can nourish us 100%. So it was from that view now I saw that those plants now actually do good in terms of nourishing us and healing our body. So that's how the process got refined now, which is the process that I'm using now to address a lot of conditions for other people, because I deal with a lot of people now. So
Yes.
as
Yes.
I
Yes. Yes.
go,
Yes.
I learn a lot from the results they're generating, and then that's what
Mm.
even makes us confident now in even dealing with other things. That because the furniture inside our bodies is the same. We all have livers, we all have intestines, so no one is special. So if we recommend this from this person, we're going to recommend the same for you, because we know that we are the same basically.
Yes. 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 Well, quite interesting. Quite interesting. So, what I want to check with you is: are you saying that someone who's Chinese and someone who is, say, Mongolian and someone who is African can actually come to you, and you, with, let's say, the same condition, and you will recommend the same standard way of healing? So you're basically saying that our biochemical setup, or genetic disposition has a lot of similarities.
Yes, I like that you're saying similarities, not the same, because similarities, and the difference is on the vibration. The
Yes,
organs
yes,
are
yes.
all the same. The organs are all the same, but the genome is different. Like a black race has a higher vibration, and this is not. And the main reason for this is actually is because the pigmentation of our skin
Yes,
is black, because of we have a lot of carbon, or more carbon than other races.
yes,
And
yes, yes, yes.
carbon
No, that's,
and carbon, sometimes people give this attribute to melanin, but I
yeah,
want to speak to scientifically now to things that you can get on the periodic table of elements, because we don't have melanin there, but we do
yeah,
have carbon. So carbon is electrical, it's an electrical element. It's got electrons. It's got 6 electrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons. So it's got
yeah,
a definite number of electrons. That's why we say it's electrical. So we have a high concentration of carbon. So our genome is vibrating at a higher rate because of that. So other races that have a less carbon, they still vibrate, but a bit less. So in terms of recommendation of what to be used, it's still the same. It's still the same, you know, because we are one race. We are Homo sapiens. We are all Homo
yes, 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 yes,
sapiens, even
definitely.
though the genome is different. Interesting that you asked this, because someone asked that my blood type is, because I've got a product called Blood Cleanse, and then they come
Yes,
with
yes,
a
yes,
thing that, okay, I'm blood type O, I'm blood type this. I tell them I really don't care. I really don't care what blood type you are, because whoever you are, even whatever race, the blood has the same functions. You know, the blood in terms of composition, the blood will have red blood cells, white
mm.
blood cells, and the blood plasma, which contains some platelets that have some,
Yes, 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 yes.
it's the same. And the function is going to be the same. It's going to be to transport nutrients to the various organs and collect waste. So the function is the same. It doesn't really matter what blood type you are. All doesn't matter. We just nourish the blood. The blood needs iron, whether you are yellow, whether you're black or red. We just give you iron. You might need less iron because of your of your lack of or less of carbon, but you need iron for the blood nevertheless. So we don't really check of what kind of skin color you have or race. It's the same thing basically.
You know, you mentioned something very interesting when you say you cannot go to the periodic table and get melanin, which is actually quite interesting because the melanin thing is also, to be honest, I mean, it gained popularity in the last 5 to 10 years, which is something we were not really aware of. You know,
Mm,
it's and I like the fact that you put it this way because honestly, if if there is something wrong with me, you can go to the periodic table and get an element there that can be attributed to my ailment and even the healing thereof. You go back to the periodic table. So the chemistry of life takes us back to carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and others would mention nitrogen. They call it the chon. So in the space of the holistic healing, where you are, it's cho, which is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen.
yes,
And to be honest, in everything that has life, there's carbon.
that's it.
Yes.
Mm,
So I think maybe it's how the whole melanin thing was sold and popularized by people. I know there are people like Dr. Lila Africa who still makes a lot of reference to melanin, right?
mm,
Now, I'm happy that you mentioned the issue of the periodic table, you know, uh, and you mentioned the issue of iron. Logic says, well, not logic, science, non-contemporary and contemporary, reminds us that iron is a spark plug of your whole system. You know, it's the most arguably the most important one because once your iron is in good balance in your system, then you are able to attract other minerals easier in your system. I know it's a subject
that's
you
it.
touch on a lot when you in your lectures. I mean, I follow your work a lot. Let's just quickly unpack on iron, because people do not understand that when you lack iron, a lot of ailments are as a result of insufficient iron. Let's quickly get into and also say in what form it's expressed because people talk about hemoiron, which is iron
Mm,
expressed in animal form,
mm,
but the spark plug is iron expressed from nature, which is iron in your 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 plant form. I think it's iron fluorine.
yes,
Yes, tend to be corrected, but please
yes,
unpack
it
on
is.
that. Please
Mm.
unpack on that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, you mentioned something interesting as well because it's been addressed or confirmed not only by holistic doctors but by all doctors basically, by science itself, that any disease, any sickness, when you're sick, you are deficient in one of the minerals. You know,
Yes. Yes.
any
Yes. Yes.
sickness is mineral deficiency. So the reason iron, as you mentioned, that is important is because because the minerals they all have different properties, and what iron has is got a magnetic properties. That's why it's
Yes. Yes. Yes.
important. So when you and the body again is made of different minerals, and it needs those minerals in different proportions. It might need only might need 9%, and 9% is a lot comparing to that we have 102 minerals that we are made of. Maybe if say you need even say 4% of that specific mineral, that is a lot because maybe you need iron in 4%, maybe niobium in only 0.002%. So even if you don't replenish your body with that niobium, you'll still be okay. But if your body is lacking one of the key minerals that it needs in a higher proportion, then it's gonna definitely show or manifest as a sickness. So iron has got that importance because it's magnetic. It is so that when you
Yes.
consume iron, it's got the ability now to attract all other dormant minerals that are maybe sitting in your other somewhere in your body, to attract them. You can remember, like I said, the iron must go to the blood, and the
Yes.
blood the transporter is our Uber. So once the iron it takes those minerals, gets them to the blood, then the blood is able to take them where they need to go. Where
Yeah.
they were lying dormant somewhere in the body. So that's the importance of iron. And you mentioned something important again. It has to be the right iron. It has to
Yes.
be the right iron, because the minerals in the universe, they express in mostly, some can be more, but mostly in two forms. In a form that is in its natural state. I mean, by its natural state, I'm taking an ion. Let's stick to iron. And iron can be the one used to build boats and bridges and like mechanical infrastructure.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That is not something that you can consume. However, in the allopathic or homeopathic methods, what they do basically, they melt in the lab with that iron. That one is an oxide. It's an oxide. It's the same, for instance, the salt that is chiseled from the mountain. That is an oxide of iron. It's an oxide. So this is the form that the body cannot understand.
Yes.
Whereas if the same iron now, because the iron will be underground, because like the soil the plants can grow because they're able to extract minerals underground. So a natural plant, a plant now that is not made by botanists, it's got the ability to send its roots far deeper in the ground. And by doing this, it's got the ability of extracting or absorbing the nutrients from those minerals, from the same iron. And then now it's using this now because it's using this to attract by the roots, and it's going to come up the bark to the leaves, the fruit of that plant. So when you consume now that plant that contains that pre-digested iron, the body now is able to understand it because it didn't come in its raw form. And now this form is either called phosphate. These are phosphates now. So that's why you can have an iron phosphate, which is now a soluble substance basically. Phosphate is a soluble substance, and then oxides is a solid substance now. It's a substance
Yeah.
that your body cannot understand, is not compatible with. So that's why sometimes you are sick, you have anemia, lack of iron. They give you some shots or some pill that is an oxide, and I can tell you it's not going to do you any good. If it does, it's going to be short-lived. But when you consume the substance that is natural now, this iron that comes from the plant, I mean, you're going to be nourished. You're going to be nourished.
No, perfect, perfect. So is it then correct to say if you get it in its oxide form, it is not in complete molecular structure? It is you're not getting iron in its complete molecular structure. Now, how does it go? How far does it go in terms of inflammation in the human, like in blood inflammation? Because I mean, if it's not expressed in its complete form, molecular form, and it's intervened with from what nature gave us, how does that then go? How far does it go in terms of hurting and assaulting the body?
Yeah, the body is like sometimes to understand the body, just have to look at nature. Sometimes
Yeah.
in the beach, all the dirt, the plastics that are thrown inside, the sea will sooner or later throw it to the shores. It doesn't want it. It's not part of it. So the body does the same. It sees this foreign substance inside it, and then it says, "Hey, I don't understand you. I cannot digest you. I cannot. You cannot nourish me. So get out of the way." And then it sends them to the organs that are responsible for filtration, because the body will filter. Even it's just one of its function. We're gonna send it to the liver, which plays some of the filtration. Also kidneys. And then now this substance gets there. The liver also cannot understand this substance, and then what it ends up doing now is clogging the liver. Because what happens? The liver now will start to produce more bile, because the bile now helps. The bile is alkaline. The bile is alkaline. It helps now with the filtration. So it's going to end up producing too much bile than the body needs. As a result, this bile now will start to crystallize and harden, and it's going to end up being intrahepatic stones or gallstones, you know. So basically, it's gonna clog the system in summary. It's gonna clog the system, and then shit is gonna happen. In summary, when you have those gallstones, it's like the saying, when you're suffering with one thing, you can be rest assured that you're going to be suffering with something else as well, because your body's function has been disturbed. Because the body function is one, so we disturb one function, the filtration is going to disturb something else in the long run. So this stuff
True.
these
True. True.
oxides end up clogging our system, causing the inflammation, as you mentioned. That's where the sickness starts. It's the inflammation,
Yeah.
which is the swelling of the tissues inside.
No. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So there's a lot that we probably overlook because the body's intertwined. So if the liver is not fine, it's an expression of something else also not being fine. Like everything, there's like this whole, it's interwired, you know. So someone comes to you and say, my liver is sore. But you as a healer know it's not just the liver. You know,
Yes.
it's linked to something else, you know. It's there's there's a much bigger problem. If someone comes to you and says, I've got a headache, you know, there's inflammation in the brain, you know, there's a much bigger problem, you know. And I think the problem with allopathic medicine for me, and with all due respect, there is that it has compartmentalized the body. It treats things in isolation. You know, someone comes to
Yes.
you, the eyes are sore. You are taken to an eye specialist. Someone comes to you, the nose is sore. Yes, you know, it's something wrong with your nasal pharynx. But what I like about the natural allopathic way is that it does not break the body down into compartments. It deals with it holistically. That is why people in this space are called holistic healers, you know. So so
Yes.
so and I think for me, another thing that is that we've not done enough work, and credit to your work, to understand why are black people sick. Black people are sick, you know. There has been a biological violation, you know, and that still continues, right? Now, before we get to the subject matter, which is using alkaline plant based as an alternative to reversing lifestyle ailments, let us get let us be blunt and get to it. Animal protein is wrong for us.
Yes.
Animal products are wrong for us. I think we've just briefly touched on the fact that not everything that is plant is good for us. You know, your hybrids. But let us quickly touch on why is it that research, commission research, attributes a lot of ailments to the consumption of meat, dairy, eggs. You know, and that is where a lot of these lifestyle ailments come in. You know, I think
Yeah.
let's quickly touch on that.
Okay. I normally tell people, I think first of all it's addiction, because meat tastes nice, you know. No joke about that, you know. So people get
Oh, for sure.
addicted to that, yeah, and and lack the to take action, to sacrifice. Well, it's a sacrifice sometimes to stop these things and take care of your body. And I tell people, sometimes when you go to the shop and buy meat, you don't put it in your cupboard, or your pantry. You put it in your fridge, because the fridge is gonna, because of the temperature, obviously. But your body is more like your cupboard than it is like the fridge. It's not cold inside. It's hot. Our body
Mm,
temperature about 36 degrees actually. It's hot. So it gets there. In few days, it's gonna rot. That's why I'm telling people, if you eat a lot of meat and then you don't go to a toilet every day, you can be rest assured what's happening is rotting inside. So all flesh, all meat, rots inside and ferments and turns into uric acid.
mm,
Same with dairy. Dairy, you're gonna do the same. If you buy milk, you put it outside. In a few days, it's gonna be now sour milk. Same thing's happening inside. It's gonna turn into lactic acid, and then it's the same with these starch-based food like potatoes, these hybrids. They end up being carbonic acid, and now these acids, now acid is burns. So the body, as a way of protecting itself from this acidic of this acidity inside, it secretes a lot of mucus, which is
Mm.
its
Mm.
protection mechanism, so that it can lubricate its linings or its cells from being burned by these acids. As a result, now this too much mucus ends up suffocating the tissues inside or the cells inside, and they cannot
True.
breathe.
Yeah, very
And
true.
any disease is because of deprivation of oxygen, basically. If your cells
Yeah.
cannot breathe, they will die. It's the same oxygen that the blood is transporting to the cells, with the hemoglobin cells. You don't get oxygen, you are dead. Even you can even by closing your suffocating someone, you don't get oxygen, they will die. It's the same scenario happening
Actually.
on the inside. So we consume a lot of these foods. You might say, I've been eating this meat for whatever years old. It's all about accumulation. When it gets to you, it's gonna get to you. You can be rest assured. So it is for that reason. It's the create acidic environment inside our bodies. So that's how our approach. As you say, allopathy by definition, actually, allopathy is a treatment of symptoms, not the cause.
Yeah.
It's a treatment of symptoms using drugs. So that is two useless things: drugs and treating the symptoms. We want to treat the underlying cause. So that's why sometimes when someone is sick, I recommend the same package. Here's the package, because this is a package that will make sure that it cleanses all systems of your body. At the same time, it tries to replenish all the minerals that are needed, or most of the minerals that are needed by your body. That is the process. We try to do it holistically, address everything. Don't try to do, oh, my eyes, I'm losing eyesight. But why are you losing eyesight? And most likely, eyesight is linked to the lack of function of pancreas. And if that's why people with diabetes will also suffer in eyesight. And in the long
Mm.
run, it's going to be diabetic coma, because the sugar levels, the imbalance in sugar levels, will basically cause short circuit in your brain, cause inflammation in your brain, can be called either Alzheimer's or something. But all these things are interconnected. You suffer from this, sooner or later you'll be suffering from something else linked to that. So that's why we do it holistically, cleanse all the toxins, all this excess mucus from your body, so that your body can basically get a reset. I wouldn't even claim to be healers. It's your body that heals itself.
Yes,
All
yes,
our
yes,
job is
yes,
to
yes.
do is to
Yeah.
remove obstruction. I'm not a healer.
Wow. I actually like the fact that you say you're not a healer, but you're
Mm,
creating a conducive environment for the body to step in and start with the healing process, because
yes.
we don't understand how powerful the body is. The body is
Mm,
extremely powerful.
too
And
much.
if you take it back to nature, then the body will obviously be very good to you. I like the fact that you are talking about things, how things are interconnected. Uh, I know in modern day today, you've got guys in our age group. I mean, we're quite young. Guys in our age group who are suffering from erectile dysfunction. You know, uh, and they want to go and address the issue that is happening down there, but they are not addressing the fact that what is clogging your system, right?
Mm,
Uh, and it could actually erectile dysfunction could actually be a symptom of coronary artery disease. Where and I always say to people, if you've got erectile dysfunction, uh, just try one day, if you can, go and do a scan that is called angiogram, where they look at how your arteries are, and you find that there's a lot of swelling in your arteries. Uh, and once you clean out your system, once you get rid of the things that causes the inflammation in your system, then you even forget that you had erectile dysfunction, because a lot of things heal. Your even your challenges down there heal. Your system
yes.
gets clean.
Mm,
I think that is why Dr. Sebi said when he was on his 90-day fast, towards the end, when he went to the bathroom, he realized that he was erected.
yeah.
After suffering from erectile dysfunction at the age of what, 28, 29,
Yeah, which is quite young.
because he was diabetic.
Mm.
He was diabetic, but he also had a combination of all these other issues, all these other
Mm.
conditions, right? Now, let us get to the food and the herbs now. We're not going to get into detail to say uh, Badok root heals this,
Mm.
but maybe let's touch on the key herbs. The
Mm.
key herbs that we use or you use to one clean out the system. You know, because you can say you are not a healer, but you are a plumber.
Mm.
You are helping the body get rid of everything, to drain out everything. You're making sure the pipes in the body, you know,
Yes.
are in good working order, you know. So yeah, let's touch on the herbs. Let's touch on the food part to
Yeah.
say what food, what
Uh,
herbs. So when it comes to
okay.
yeah,
Mm.
no, no, no,
Okay.
no, no, go for it.
So
Sorry.
so I don't know you speak about specific herbs and this, but what we do, we look at the herbs that comply to this process I just mentioned now, that are natural, that are created by nature. Obviously, they have different properties. Like one of them is like sarsaparilla root or plant. It's got the highest concentration of iron. So since we spoke about
Mm-hmm.
iron, I just want to stick to the
Yes.
iron. You know, it's got the highest concentration of iron. So when we try to do the cleansing, we have to make sure that we give large dosage of this. However, one of my or the way I prefer to do it, because I take plants, even though they are powerful, they are sometimes limited to a body. Especially if you've been suffering from whatever you're suffering it for a long time. How I try to do it is like, maybe we have Lionel Messi. He's a very good player, definitely, but he can't do anything alone. So I like to group the herbs that have similar properties. Even
Yes.
though
Yes.
the others might have a lesser proportion of iron, but once you do this, then through the chemical bonding, they are able now to function better than maybe using sarsaparilla alone. But if we can use sarsaparilla and bedog and yellow dog and all these ones that have iron, like elderberries, and
Yes.
then their function will be increased. Will be increased. That's how you prefer to do it. Other people, obviously, they like to use them as a single, maybe to maintain. But if you're suffering from anything that is chronic, you just have to be aggressive and combine them So that's the process we use. Obviously, when you do this, we're cleansing. You don't want to at the same time be consuming the same food you are cleansing out, which is the dairy and the flesh and everything. You want to now be consuming food that is at least complementary to the cleansing, the food that will also have iron. For instance, kale, like this green kale, kale is a
Yes. Yes.
hybrid, just to be sure, but is one of the things that we do recommend because it's difficult to be perfect in this time. What you check in is the severity of danger they can cause to your body, because we check with the pH. If something is 6.9, it's closer to be neutral or closer to be alkaline. We can
Yes.
consume it and still be okay than consuming something that is like 4 or 3.5 that is more acidic. So sometimes we don't do this, tell people do alkaline, be perfect. Perfection is paralysis. If you're trying to be perfect, you will never do anything. But at least watch
Sure.
what is about watching and then checking also the severity of the damage it can cause. So that's how we approach it. So there's items like quinoa that will
Yes.
encourage that you consume when in this cleansing journey. And most green vegetables are okay, maybe with exception of
Yeah, your leafy
even
greens. Yeah.
spinach as well. You know what I've done with spinach? People I say sometimes people in the group, they like to be perfect. I use spinach, but plant spinach, because spinach is one of those fast growing vegetables. But instead, because I use herbs at the same times, like when I'm doing tonics. So when I boil those roots of the sarsaparilla, I can use that water to water now those spinach. By doing that, you're electrifying now that spinach.
Ah.
The same spinach, because the spinach is not that too acidic, so you can electrify it by watering it with the water that contains high vibration minerals. You see, so there's methods you can do, because in other things they take long to grow. Spinach grows very fast, and that's why so
Yeah.
many people are growing spinach. Sometimes you can take something that is bad and try to make it less bad.
Makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Mm,
And I mean,
mm.
and most of these leafy greens are full of chlorophyll.
Yes. See,
full of
that's why
chlorophyll. And
I
chlorophyll is
don't
very
bash a lot
critical.
of greens. Yes, yes.
So typically, with me, for instance, I make sure that a day I eat whatever. I make sure daily I consume at least about 5 cups of leafy
Mm,
greens,
mm,
1.5 to 2 cups of grains like your quinoa or
mm,
amaranth or
mm.
or and wild rice. But wild rice is a rare find in South Africa. Eh?
It's rare, and you find in small packs, and it's expensive.
That's
Yeah,
the thing.
actually,
That's the
wild rice.
thing.
Yeah, it's very rare.
That's
Yeah.
the thing. Yeah, yeah. That's the thing.
Mm,
Look, like you say, it's also difficult to try to be perfect in terms of.
mm,
But I think the least you can do is to try at
mm.
least make sure that 80% to 85% of what you
Yes,
consume
yes,
is
yes,
alkaline. I
yes.
think that's the most important thing. You
Mm,
know? And
that's it.
yeah, okay, perfect. And so you would have your sarsaparilla, you have your buttock root, and those typically those herbs. Those herbs have
Yeah.
got a high mineral content, which is exactly what our body needs. The sea
Yes.
moss, those type of things. So I
Yes.
need sea moss a lot because I'm
Mm,
I'm I'm into endurance.
mm,
But what I've also seen is sea moss has got great affinity with the mitochondria, where your energy cells are stored. And I've realized that once I switched over to this lifestyle, I didn't have to even use much or a lot of supplements for energy because I have reactivated, for instance, where
mm,
my energy cells are stored, like in my mitochondria and in the ATP. So, and again, we're not different to animals. Nature should dictate actually how we must live. But
yes.
we've stepped out of nature, and I'm glad that there's people like you who are addressing this move away from nature because we desperately need to move back into nature. But and which is why we're sick. We're sick because we have stepped out of nature, but we also did not understand this. But there's a lot of issues that had contributed to that. One, the colonial system uh, played a huge role in that.
Yeah.
Number two, the scarcity for food. I think
Mm,
as human beings grew in numbers and numbers and numbers, food got redefined. I learned in my historic research, because I'm a scholar of history, that human beings didn't consume meat. It was only upon the scarcity of food that they started milking the cows for the milk, because they saw the calves were drinking from the mothers.
mm,
And from so also through the evolution process, eh, our minds also evolve. We either evolve much to our downfall instead of, but now where we found ourselves, there is us evolving back to Mother Nature, trying to be calibrated from the loins of nature. What are the typical ailments that people come to you with? Uh, typically, let's focus on lifestyle,
mm.
not your
Yeah.
diseases that you contract from, let's say, another human being, but
Yeah.
typically your lifestyle ailments.
I think I'll mention maybe okay, diabetes. Diabetes
Yes,
is
yes,
one. You
yeah.
know, high blood pressure is one, and the cause is the same. High
Mm,
blood pressure is the same, and then for ladies, the fibroids, which later
yes.
causes the endometriosis, because endometriosis is
Mm-hmm.
just the fibroids matured. You know,
Yes.
so those three, if obviously those three, they, like I said, they're the root. There's a lot of the root. When you have high blood pressure, you are likely, because now your heart now is stressed, so it's
Mm,
likely that maybe even your breathing, your asthma. So all of these, they show all of these one. They show that our piping system, because we're dealing with pipes, Our piping system, our pipes have been reduced by this cholesterol. I've been reduced by the cholesterol. That's why now we have high blood pressure, because the heart now has to work harder to pump the blood through a smaller channel, whereas it used to pump through a bigger channel. It's the same with diabetes. Is a pancreatic duct is clogged. So it's all these ducts, it's all this mucus that has clogged these other systems. So it's those. If I were to choose top three, is those ones, and then obviously there's asthmas and others. But diabetes, high blood, they go on top.
True.
Yeah.
Those are common. And I think let's be honest. In our families, we have got a number of people we can count who have prematurely died of diabetes, high blood pressure. There are females in our families who are suffering from fibroids, endometriosis. And all of this goes back to what we consume, the food that we eat. People take this for granted, but it's actually extremely important to understand that what we consume has got a dire effect on our overall health. Now the healing. So I know you've got. I mean, a lot of people that you deal with. I can put my foot down. I mean, I can put my head on the block and say, I would definitely recommend you. I'll send someone your way, because I know a lot of people who've been healed in this journey.
Yes.
But and people need to understand, once you've gone through the healing part, don't go back there. Don't go back there. And I then want to go back to for me, what I call the divine part of the body, which is the gut. The gut has got neurons, that are sent to the brain to remind the brain of how delicious all the wrong things are. Dr. Sebi touched in detail the importance of a clean gut, because you've got your gut itself. Your gut microbiome is a whole ecosystem on its own, where you've got everything happening down there. And people do not understand that what we eat in the gut, you've got bacteria in the gut. You then have this bacteria that enjoys eating what is in your gut. And if you're not going to balance it out with good bacteria, you are going to have a gut that is not healthy. It will keep sending signals to the brain that I need to eat chocolate, I need to eat meat, I need to eat. So by nourishing our body with all these alkaline herbs, we're creating a new software down there.
Yes.
The
Yes.
food that we eat, we're creating a new software down there. So for instance, when I'm hungry, or it is time for me to snack, I know it is time for me, my between my brain and my gut, I know I need to get walnuts.
Yes.
I need to, if I am hungry, I know that I need to get grains, I need to get leafy greens in my system. And there is nothing that is reminding me that I need to get meat.
Yeah.
Because there's a new software that has been developed down there. And I think it's also something that we do not stress as much as we should, that the gut health must be paid attention to. Just
Yes.
quickly unpack on that one. Just quickly, briefly on it.
Yeah.
We're not going to dwell much on it.
Okay. I like the analogy of software. I think I'm gonna steal it. And it's
Go for it.
really like
Go
that,
for it. Go for it.
because you can software, you can install and you can uninstall and install a new one, all
Yep.
of the process. So it's basically what you can do. Actually, I learned something about this from because when my son was born, we were already in this lifestyle. So up until he was like 4 years old. He's never touched sweets. He's never. I mean, we're very strict. He never touched sweets. He never ate meat. All these things were like almost alkaline, 100% at the time. And when you go to the shops, he won't even, like children, they don't want to take maybe sweet or anything. He didn't crave those things because he didn't know them. And I learned something that, sometimes, even though myself, I have forgotten about those because of willpower then, because I'm an adult. But kids,
Mm.
Kids are kids. They always crave those things. But he never did because he never knew how they taste in the first place. Obviously, he knows now how they
Aha.
taste. So he
Aha.
will,
Aha.
So it goes to what you're saying now with the gut. I mean, with the bacteria now, he will crave something that that it likes basically. So at that time for him, I can say it was like plant-based gut, and then he would be crazy on watermelons and mangoes and all these other fruits, that are obviously
Exactly. It's
sweet
what he
and
knows.
nice. Yeah, so I learned something there. Really, I learned something there. So our gut is obviously that important. In fact, the hormone called serotonin, it said that about 90% plus of it is produced from the brain. Only less than 10%, I'm sorry, from the gut. Only less than
Yes, 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 yes.
10% comes from the brain. So there is that link. I think there's still so much study to be done on this topic. So there's a definite link between the two because the serotonin is the one that controls our mood, first of all. Our mood,
Mm-hmm.
our anxiety, our happiness, and so it's basically controlling how we behave. So that's why sometimes people say, no, no, my gut feeling tells me this, not my brain. My gut feeling tells me this. So I think we intuitively know these things that our gut is that powerful. So I tell people how important it is to take care of our gut, colon in this case, because if you eat every day, 3 times a day, but you don't go to the toilet, you should also be thinking that where is that food sitting? It's rotting in your gut, and what kind of bacteria is creating in your gut?
True, true.
It's just rot. So, and the
Yes,
blood, when
yes.
it's extracting whatever, you're gonna be circulating the same uh, dirt, if I might call it, that is in your body. So, a good functioning body is the one that can eat so many times a day, but go at least two to 3 times a day. And then we're not talking about that runny laxative type. We're talking
Yes,
about
yes, yes.
something that is hard stool. That is a symbol that okay, the food. This is from the food that I ate previously. So the gut is that important. And also just to touch base that the gut will not be clogged if your liver is functioning right, because the
Mm-hmm.
bilirubin from the liver is acts as a lubricant now, so that in the walls of your intestines, the food can travel nice. But if there's lack thereof, because your what is they call it, the common bile duct is clogged, there's not enough bile coming there, then your colon is going to be clogged, your stool is dry, it doesn't have a lubricant to take it out. So it goes to what we mentioned in the first place, that all the systems of our body are interconnected. You cannot address one without touching the other.
No, true, 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 true.
Mm.
So what I like about what you just said, you mentioned the issue of serotonin,
Mm.
right? Now, it is also a natural antidepressant.
Yes, yes.
So another thing that people do not pay attention to is the lack of sleep.
Mm.
To have insomnia. When you have clean gut, when your gut health, your gut microbiome is functioning well, you also produce a hormone called melatonin, which contributes to quality sleep. And these are typically the hormones that also contribute to the fully functioning of your mitochondrion. You know, uh, and this is what I love about such platforms, because the exchange of information, right? Uh, these type of exchange of data and information is not available there for the masses. People just think life is black and white and that's it. But there's a lot to it. I think it is important for us to create harmony between the human being and nature, and 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 take a scholarly approach to it, to try and understand. For instance, someone who's unhappy, someone who's depressed will not actually think. of dealing with the gut. They will go to a, say, doctor, and they get antidepressant medication, and still continue to feed the gut the food that assaults the gut microbiome, the gut flora, where a lot of these hormones are formed, which is quite problematic if you ask me. It's quite problematic. And again, this is what you send to the brain.
Yeah.
So the nonsense gets developed down there and gets sent to the brain. So what you think you action as a result of what is here, no, it is actually what's supposed to be addressed down there.
Yes.
And lastly, on this point, children are very impressionable, right? So that is the first challenge you have. But if you've got a child that's impressionable, but then you've got a child that has got terrible software down there. So if you can wean a child over from a young age, feeding them what the body requires, right? And you make all these refined foods foreign to their system, then it's difficult to, when your child, for instance, sees someone or watches TV and sees processed things with sugar. I'm not going to mention brands because we'll get into trouble for it.
Yeah.
And thinks it's okay. They will know automatically. It is incorrect for me to buy this chocolate. It is incorrect for me to buy these sweet and sour sweets. But they know it is fine for me to eat seeded watermelon.
Yes.
It is fine for me to get, say what, kiwi fruit or, you name it.
Yeah.
Things that were made by nature or from nature or close to nature. But my brother, I think the time will never be enough.
Yes,
for
yes.
this.
Actually, I'm sorry to cut you. My battery is gonna die. I don't want it to cut.
No, that's fine. That's
Going
fine.
forward, I think we're very passionate about this topic, both of us. So let us just call this part one. I think later on, after we've done some other couple of rounds, we need to touch base on this again.
Yeah, no, definitely,
Yes.
definitely. I think people must make use of the power of social media. They get to Sikelela Sovasi on Facebook, and we'll continue this conversation, right? I think it's very important. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you. This was very informative. I learn a lot from you daily. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. This was part one. We'll definitely have another follow-up session to this. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Mhlekazi. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you,
I
Budam.
truly,
Ngiyabule.
truly appreciate this. Love and
Yes.
peace, my
Thank
brother.
you.
Thank you.
Love. Cheers, brother. Cheers.
Thank you.
Sure.
Wow. There was Sikelela Sovasi. Sikelela Sovasi has been doing tremendous work in the space. A lot of people have been given the tools to equip the body to actually get into healing mode. Thank you very much. We're about to wrap this up. This is Plant Power with Mawethu. This is your media. Hashtag where you are.
Your media, where you are. Show you the chemistry of life through food that goes from the ground to the body.